Real talk. Most people are spending the majority of their time, 90, 95, 99% of their time on the stuff that's actually never going to get them a storage deal. So today we're going to fix that. Welcome back to the Storage Wins podcast. My name is Alex Pardo. I own and operate self-storage facilities and lead a community of people that are actively buying storage facilities across the country, in many cases without using their own money, without having any experience. And today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I have pulled questions straight from our Storage Wins private community. These are real people, real investors, real challenges, real situations that you are probably facing too. And if you're watching me, chances are you're looking to buy your first facility, or if you're listening, you're probably even maybe looking for your next facility. So we're going to hit things like cold calling, offers, follow-up offers, avoiding distractions, and essentially how you can stop hiding in the busy work and start doing the things that are going to move you towards buying your very first or your next storage facility. Now, look, some of the answers come right out of our private coaching calls. Some of these might sting a little bit. They might hit you right between the eyes, but all of them are designed to help you build confidence, gain traction and momentum, and start making smarter moves as quickly as today. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start doing the things that are going to help you get storage deals done, we're going to dive right in here. And I want to start with a question that came from a newer Storage Wins community member, somebody that joined within the last, I think, 30, 45 days or so. And he had a question about cold calling. Okay, now, cold calling is a great way to connect directly with mom and pop storage owners, especially if you don't have a lot of resources or if you don't really have like even a little bit of money to spend on direct mail. Then this can be a very effective way to just quickly connect with people. Unfortunately, when it comes to cold calling, oftentimes I think people overcomplicate this or they are intimidated by the process. And I want to go ahead and release the pressure valve for you, because whenever you think about cold calling as a way to just connect with another human being, right? Don't put them up on a pedestal just because they own a storage facility, but you're just connecting with a person. You're going to be yourself. There's no fancy script or words you're going to use. And you're merely just going to ask them if they would ever consider selling their storage facility or if they would consider making an offer on their facility. So now that I've kind of set the stage and given you a little bit of background, this particular question, I'll just go ahead and read the question. He said, I have a question concerning cold calling. Do you cold call on the weekends too, or just during the work week? I know most folks are spending time with family on weekends. I understand maybe not on Sunday. Thanks for any advice given. And that was met with a ton of our community members going in there, sharing their feedback. And I want to in particularly highlight one response. And this community member said, personally, I would cold call on Saturdays with a smiley face. And then there was a series of follow-up messages. And I thought that perfectly summarized the answer directly. So my response is 1,000% cold call on Saturdays. Now, why would I say that? Now, I recognize that, look, you might have set some tight boundaries around not working on weekends, and I respect that. I honor that. That's perfectly fine. I think it really depends on the season of life and business that you're in. If you're just getting started and you're looking for your first facility and you're getting up off the ground, it's my belief you should be putting in some time on Saturdays, okay? Now, why do I say that? Well, let me go back to his initial question, and I want to highlight one particular sentence. He said, I know most folks are spending time with family on weekends. So I think the undercurrent of his belief is he doesn't want to bother them. Like it's Saturday, it's their day off, they're spending time with family. And I have always been of the mindset that I would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. So what I told them was absolutely, Saturday can be an incredible day to cold call. And here's why I say that. Most people, or I should say many people, either are not willing to work on weekends like a Saturday because they'd rather, spend it doing things that fill them up in personal time. And I think that's great, but I think you need to earn that. You don't just get it, okay? Especially if you're getting started and, you haven't gained traction, momentum, you haven't bought your first storage facility. So number one, a lot of people are not willing to put the time, energy, and effort in on a weekend. So that in and of itself is going to separate you from your competition, from others who are looking to buy storage facilities. Number two, they might feel the same way my newer coaching client feels, like, hey, I don't want to bother them. They're with their family. It's personal time. And I shared with him that that's exactly why Saturday is a great day to call, because you are going to be in the minority of people that are out there reaching out to these people. So I think Saturday can be a great day to call. As a general rule of thumb, I've tested this, and I would encourage you to test this as well. So just because it's worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Generally speaking, I like to be calling between 10 a.m. Eastern and noon, right? Especially depending on your time zone. And then I also like to call like between 2 and 4 p.m. I have found to be a pretty good sweet spot. After 6 p.m. can be a little bit challenging. I probably wouldn't recommend calling after 8 p.m. But again, better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So most people probably think like me. And so if you're brave enough to cold call somebody at 9:30 p.m., so be it. Test it out. Test it out. See what works for you. But I think weekends are a great day. Now, personally, Sunday, I tend to avoid work on Sundays for the most part. I'm not saying that I've never done it. But if you're willing to work on a Sunday and you want to make some phone calls, the worst thing that happens is they don't pick up, or they might get annoyed that you called, and then just apologize and keep them in your follow-up system unless they tell you not to. So that was a very direct, simple question. And I wanted to share that with you because that little tip right there, and I think the takeaway and the nugget I want you to get from this is doing things others aren't willing to do. If you do what others aren't willing to do, you're going to get what others don't have. And that can be cold calling, I think, is a super, super simple example here. So moving on, I want to now shift to a question that we got from another community member when it came to the seller providing the price. And I'm going to summarize his message here in our private community. But he said, look, I was talking to a storage owner about the facility. He told me that they have a number in mind that they wouldn't go below. So they had a floor that they weren't looking to go. Oftentimes when you ask a seller for their price, they won't give it to you. So I always say, hey, ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. And I would always rather the seller give me the price than me throw out the first number. All right. In this particular case, my coaching client was able to get a price from them, and the seller told them, we're not looking to go any lower than 1.1 million, which probably means there's a little bit of room and flexibility there depending on the seller. But he went on to provide some additional details, which for the purposes of this is not really relevant. But here's the mistake that he made. And again, this is a newer community member. And it was a great teaching lesson, and he learned a lot from this, is he didn't go on to ask any further questions. He basically said, hey, this is as far as I got in the call. He basically got the number, but he didn't really follow up. And now look, to his credit, this was very early on. I think 30 days into his journey here with Storage Wins. And the fact that he's already making some calls, I think are big wins and things to celebrate. And these are experiences that he can build on and that you can build on as well. So the good thing is that he started to build some rapport with him and asked, hey, do you mind if we stay in touch? Can I follow up with you in the future? Which the seller agreed. So here's his question. Should I ask him to see if he'd be willing to provide me more details on the facility and any financial documents to see if we could do business, or should I wait a little bit? And so that was the question. And he was met with several responses of people in our community that encouraged him and lifted him up to, don't be shy to ask the questions. Absolutely. You already have the storage owner on the phone. They've already agreed that, hey, they would sell. Now they have a particular number in mind. So I guess he felt bad or he just didn't have the confidence yet to be able to ask a follow-up question. And what I want you to take from this question is, you don't need to bombard the seller with a million questions to be able to evaluate the opportunity, to be able to underwrite the deal, essentially, analyze it and see, hey, what is it worth today based on the income that the asset is generating and producing? What is the future value once I potentially raise the rates to match the market, the average of the market rates, and do some value add things to increase the overall value? And what would a good offer be? And I always recommend making 2 or 3 offers. And that's one of the things that we hold our Storage Wins community members accountable to, is the number of meaningful conversations with sellers, the number of deals that we underwrite on a daily basis, and then making offers. It's hard to get on base if you don't step up to the plate. So making offers is super important. But what I want you to know is that with really one or two pieces of information, you have enough to underwrite or evaluate the deal. And we encourage him, at a bare minimum, ask for the gross revenue. Okay, in other words, what is the gross revenue year to date? That's top line revenue, essentially sales. And then, if possible, find out what the gross revenue was last year, the previous year. Okay, now just with the revenue, I can go ahead and with simple back of the napkin analysis math, I can come up with the NOI, the net operating income, and then when I apply a cap rate to that, and a cap rate is just an expression of value. It's the return that you would get if you were to buy the facility cash. Okay, that's the simple definition of a cap rate. So don't get too hung up and caught up on that. But essentially, if I just have the revenue and I apply what I believe my operating expense ratio is going to be, I can come up with an NOI. And then with a net operating income, with that NOI, if I divide that by a certain cap rate, I could essentially come up with a ballpark value based on the income it would be producing today. One of our community members brought up a great point. And I'm just going to read to you exactly what he said, because I thought he did a really good job of summarizing this. He said, I would focus on getting their gross income, and then in parentheses, he put total revenue, above anything else, just like another community member mentioned. I won't mention the name. He said, I avoid asking for net income because sellers almost always minimize or omit expenses to make the business look more profitable than it really is. And he's 100% right. 99% of the time, these mom and pop storage owners, their expenses are going to be lower than your expenses. Why? Well, they're oftentimes the manager, and they're not taking into account their time. They're not paying a property manager, or they don't have a boots on the ground. Sometimes they don't even carry insurance. Like, most of the time, a mom and pop storage owner, their expenses are going to be lower than yours. Now, you still want to look at their expenses, particularly when it comes to taxes, insurance, utilities, things of that nature, because utilities should be pretty fixed. Obviously, taxes may adjust depending on the price that you're buying. You're probably buying it for more than what they bought it for. Insurance is certainly a factor to look at. That can be a big line item. So you want to look at their expenses, but you don't want to underwrite the deal per se with their expense number. You're going to use some of their expenses, though, especially the ones that are fixed, and then you're going to put in what you believe your expenses are going to be. So back to his answer, he said, the way they operate the facility and what they choose to count as an expense will rarely match how you would run it once you take it over. For example, most owners never include their own time or labor as an expense, so their net income number is usually inflated or unrealistic. Okay, and what he means by inflated is it's actually deflated, I think is what he meant to say, meaning it's going to be lower because they're not factoring in their own labor, their own time, etc. He said, bottom line, always ask for revenue, not net income. And I think he's 100% right. So I always like to get at a bare minimum the gross revenue, like I mentioned, and then if I can get the unit mix, that's super, super helpful. The unit mix is how many of each type of unit that mom and pop storage owner has. How many 5x5s, how many 5x10s, how many 10x15s. And here's a pro tip. Avoid asking what I call throwaway questions. Questions that don't really move you up the field, so to speak, in terms of building rapport and getting you closer to figuring out what the value is, what could the value be, and what you should offer. So as an example, like I won't ask, if I have the unit mix, I'm not going to ask the seller how many net rentable square feet the facility is. Why? Because I can just do some simple math in less than a minute, and the unit mix will tell me the net rentable square feet. If I have 10 5x10s, a 5 times 10 is 50 feet. If I have 10 of them, that's 500 net rentable square foot of storage. Now add that to how many 10x10s do you have, and just you do the math that way, if that makes sense. So I thought that was a good question, especially from somebody who's very, very green and early on in storage, that chances are if he's asking that question then and you're looking to buy your first, you might be thinking the same thing. And so that's the purpose of the show today, is to share with you some questions that we've been getting. and give you real world answers to help move you forward. All right. So as I keep going here, we have something in our community called #give. And every single day we have people giving and sharing and contributing. And that is because of the culture of our Storage Wins community. And I want to share something with you that is super, super foundational, fundamental, and critical to your success. And that is follow-up. Follow-up is so key. So here's the give. He said, storage wins in all exclamations. This is a reminder to myself and everyone here that follow-up is key. You never know when someone is going to change their mind and decide to sell, especially when they're older and of retirement age, which, by the way, as a side note, the majority of the mom and pop storage owners that I have bought facilities from are older, and it's because they want to slow down, they want to retire. When I was in the single family space, oftentimes people were selling due to financial distress, physical distress, meaning the property was in disrepair, or circumstantial, like divorce, death, job loss, job transfer, things of that nature. When it comes to storage, in my experience, most of the time, they want to retire, they want to slow down, sail off into the sunset, so to speak. So that's pretty common, okay? Now, once you understand that, let me hop back onto his give. He said, I've been calling on a facility for years. I always get a short answer, quote unquote, no, and a hang up. My last conversation was on May 29th with this owner, and the conversation went like all the others. No, in all caps. She was very short on the phone and hung up. I called her today and she said, yes, I want to sell and have been meeting with other buyers. I asked, well, have you had any other offers? And she said, yes, she has. Luckily, she hasn't accepted one, and I'm going to meet with her on Monday face to face. But wow, I almost missed out. I'm going to shorten my follow-up to every 2 to 3 months for older owners. And it was such a powerful share because it illustrates the importance of follow-up. You know, Dan Kennedy, who's a marketing genius and guru, says that we want to enter the conversation going on inside the minds of our prospects. And you never quite know when a seller is going to be ready to sell. And so hopefully you have a cadence, a rhythm, a follow-up system to staying top of mind and to quote unquote touching that person. And I don't mean physically, obviously. I mean like with a phone call, with a text, with a direct mail letter, with your online branding and your presence and how you're connecting with people. And so I thought the nugget at the end of I'm going to shorten my follow-up to every 2 to 3 months for older owners, I think can be really, really powerful. And what I would encourage you to do is to figure out how that person tends to communicate. Is it on the phone? Is it text? Is it email? Is it direct mail? Like what gets them to respond? And then use that as the primary mode, but mix in some follow-up. All right. And when you follow up, it doesn't always have to be about the facility. If they've shared something with you personal, like I just went traveling, I just went on vacation, I just took my granddaughter to Disney World, put that in, jot that down in your notes or your CRM, because that's something that you can reference and bring up later. And it shows that you're listening, and it just builds a closer connection potentially to that person. Now, speaking of our CRMs, I want to share with you one more give before we kind of wrap this one up. And this is a really, really good one. And this is from one of our community members who bought her first facility earlier this year, and she's knocking on the door of her second facility. And she said, after years of working with different CRMs, from Act to Asana to Go High Level, at the end of the day, you don't need fancy software to succeed. The most important thing is to have a system that you'll actually use, a system without distraction that helps you or your virtual assistant make calls. It could be a notebook, a spreadsheet, or an app, but whatever you use, just work it like your future depends on it, because it does. Nothing moves the needle and generates revenue like consistent prospecting, and the best CRM, which is our customer relationship manager or management system. The best CRM is you being the best relationship builder you can be. And she is so spot on. I cannot tell you how many people waste their time and spin their wheels on a fancy CRM with all the bells and whistles, or a website, or back in the day, a business card, God forbid, or all the stuff that just doesn't mean much, especially when you're getting started. And it's interesting. I'm going to share with you what one of our community members responded, and I'll share with you my specific response. One of our community members said, I bought $6 million in real estate all off market by using Excel sheets before I moved over to a CRM. Let that sit and settle for a second. He bought $6 million of real estate, all off market. A lot of that is storage, by the way, by using a simple Excel spreadsheet before he went into our CRM. And here was my response to this particular person and to the rest of our community. I said, this is so good and you are spot on. Oftentimes looking for a fancy CRM is a way to distract you from doing the real work, the hard work, the work that might make you feel uncomfortable. It's a distraction to give you the illusion that you are making progress when all you are doing is getting further away from what you really want. You can't bypass the work. You have to lean into it. You've done that and have reaped the rewards. Now I'm speaking specifically to her because she shared the give. And I said, so have others in the Storage Wins community. It's a great reminder to make the main thing and focus on what really moves the needle. So in summary, take audit and inventory of where you're spending your time. Are these revenue generating activities that you're spending your time on? Are they the needle movers or the small hinge that moves the big door towards your goals? Because if you're working on things that make you feel like you're making progress, but at the end of the day, you're really just spinning your wheels, you're going to get burned out. You're going to get tired. You're not seeing results. It's very demotivating and it's not sustainable. So figure out what really moves the needle, okay? That's why people have joined the Storage Wins community. It's to get clarity, to build their confidence, to get specific guidance, support, and direction using our framework, our process, our system. So I would encourage you, make sure that you're subscribed, not just to the Storage Wins podcast, but on my YouTube channel, because every single week I'm putting out content. And based on the feedback I've gotten, I think I'll be doing this frequently where I'll spotlight some questions from inside our private Storage Wins community, and I'll share with you the answers because if these are questions our members have, you probably have these questions, and they can help you on your journey. So with that being said, I look forward to connecting with you on the next one. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed and watch the next one. Watch one of these videos that pops up on the screen.